Barakateh Hawa, Barakateh Hawa Shai, Barakateh Hawa, Barakateh Hawa Shai, Kal Halalam La Yahawa, Bahashem Yawa Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Mount Stone who taught me this truth, and who still lead as examples to the flock. Peace and salutations to the Akim pushing this word, in all sincerity and all truth. Shalom. This lesson is going to be entitled, The Enemy is Rearing His Horns Once More. The enemy is rearing his horns once more. And it's, about one of the big things right now in the media, coming off the back of, the murder of, Captain Kirk, the assassination, the alleged assassination, I will say, of Captain Kirk, and that ties in with, a movement that's been happening over the past year. For example, the End White Guilt movement, the standing up, for the white race, movement, from these different things to know this happening, you notice a particular push for what is now branded as Christian nationalism, right? Now, I want to touch on, first and foremost, just, this was very, this kind of, resounded with me, the fact that the House and the Senate, passed a National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, Go inside. All right, Salakia. All right, so, yeah. So the House and the Senate, passed National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, ahead of their memorial service that they had. And we're going to touch on a few things from the memorial service, But the fact that this thing is being pushed so much, that there are multiple people who are comparing this man to Jesus Christ, saying that this man was a martyr, killed for his beliefs, killed for the things that he said, and now, Christian nationalism is all the rage, but this video is to, along with, other videos that brothers have done, particularly the elder Yashawamba, put brothers on guard on really what Christian nationalism is. All right, so what I did was I asked the chat here, the Claude AI chat, what is Christian nationalism in the US and how is it related to white supremacy? So it says Christian nationalism in the United States refers to an ideology that seeks to merge Christian identity with American national identity, advocating that the US should be officially or culturally defined as a Christian nation. And the Christianity that they're talking about is not the Christianity of the scriptures, obviously, right? It's the Christianity, as we're going to go into here, right, is the Christianity that pretty much establishes the so-called white race, as the supreme race, really and truly. So let's read on. It says, however, scholars and researchers have identified significant connections between Christian nationalism and white supremacy. Christian nationalism refers to a political ideology and identity that fuses white supremacy, Christianity, and American nationalism, and whose proponents claim that America is a Christian nation. Right? The movement goes beyond simply wanting Christian values in public life. It seeks to establish Christianity as the defining characteristic of American identity and governance. Right? But the same Bible, right, that they would pretend to believe in, the same Bible condemns a lot of things that they have done and are still doing, right? Which makes them hypocrites, right? So when you hear them talk about Christian nationalism, it's not the Christianity of the followers of Yahweh Shai, or who they ignorantly call Jesus. That's not that, right? It's good white Christians. I'm a good white Christian. That's what it's talking about, right? Connection to white supremacy. Research reveals several key connections between Christian nationalism and white supremacist ideology. Historical roots. To fully understand the deep roots of today's white Christian nationalism, we need to go back to at least 1493, and in the late 1400s, right, or 15th century, right, that's when the rebirth of the so-called white race happened during the Renaissance, which is what the word Renaissance means. It's a French word that means rebirth, right? And that's where you saw, different Edomite families coming back into power, such as the Borgias taking over the papacy, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand in Spain sending out Cristobal Colon, which is more famously known as Christopher Columbus, over here, to the west. They talk about things like the Crusades. That's the Christian nationalism, the establishment of the so-called European or Western man as the elite man, right? So let's read it on. This suggests the ideology has colonial roots or colonial origins tied to European conquest and racial hierarchy. Contemporary research findings. Recent studies show that Christian nationalism is fueled by white supremacy, the belief that white people are superior to those of other races and should dominate them. Academic research indicates that Christian nationalism likely amplifies both white racial solidarity and white outgroup animus. Animus. What does that word mean? Right. Animus. Let's look that up. Means hostility or ill feeling, motivation to do something. There we go. In the service of white supremacy, racial attitudes. Several surveys reveal concerning patterns among Christian nationalism supporters. Roughly 65% of white Christian nationalism sympathizers and adherents disagree that white supremacy is still a major problem in the US today. Of course, they're going to disagree, right? Because they are white supremacists. Jumping down to promoting white superiority. Recent research suggests that Christian nationalism promotes white supremacy more by promoting a higher view of white Americans, the prototypical Americans, right, than promoting a lower view of racial minorities, right? So what I wanted to ask now was specifically about a speech that was given by one of Trump's White House aides. Right, so I asked, during the memorial of Charlie Kirk, was there any speeches or segment of speeches that promoted Christian nationalism and white superiority? No, unfortunately, the AI cannot connect to YouTube directly and watch the video, so I had to get some clips. Right, so this is one of the clips from the quote. Our enemies cannot. And this is from Stephen Miller, who is a Trump White House aide. Right, and this excerpt here was a part of his speech that he gave during the memorial service for Captain Kirk. Right, our enemies. Who is their enemies? Right, think about that. Who are their enemies? Our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion, our lineage, and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Right, which is who? Edomites. He's talking about the Greco-Roman Empire that was ruled by the Edomites. Our ancestors built the cities, they produced the art and architecture, they built the industry, right? And I say this was a quote, right? So, this is what the AI analyzed from the quote. This quote from Stephen Miller contains several elements that align with white nationalist and Christian nationalist rhetoric that scholars have identified. Key problematic elements: our lineage and ancestral claims. The reference to our lineage tracing back to Athens, Rome, Philadelphia, and Monticello creates an exclusionary definition of us that implicitly centers European/Western heritage. This type of language is commonly used in white nationalist discourse to establish a racial hierarchy, aka we're better than you, right? The same pseudoscience that was used to justify what do you call that thing again? That was headed by one of the big supporters was that woman Margaret Sanger. What was the name again? eugenesis, right? The eugenics movement, right? This all coming back because now, as a part of this movement, they're bringing out a bunch of twisted statistics, to say that Jake is the problem. And this is not to, making excuses for Jake. You have some niggas out there that are just animals, right? We know that. We have black fatigue too, as Yasha Wamba always says. We have black fatigue too, right? So it says, our ancestors built narrative. This claim that our ancestors built the cities, produced the art and the architecture, built the industry is a classic white supremacist talking point that erases the contribution of enslaved people, immigrants, and the people of color in American development, right? So they want to say that we did all of this. Like, for example, Matt Walsh, he's another Christian nationalist slash white supremacist. And what he said was that he's glad that the Europeans that came over here conquered and enslaved and slaughtered the natives, because they were savages anyways, and without them coming over and taking and slaughtering and taking control, we wouldn't have all these cities, all these technological advancements and social advancement. It's them that just brought everything, right? They did everything, right? The narrative ignores, for example, that much of the wealth and infrastructure of early America was built through enslaved labor. Same thing with Western Europe. Western Europe is built, the wealth of Western Europe, the first world as they call it, is built off the backs of enslaved people. But hey, let's continue. Connection to white nationalist ideology. This type of rhetoric aligns with what researchers call cultural or civilizational nationalism, positioning European heritage and achievement as the foundation of American greatness, while minimizing and ignoring contribution from other groups. The our enemies cannot comprehend framing also creates an us versus them. Who is the them? It's you, Jake. You, Jake, are the us versus them, yo. Right? They're against you. You are their enemies, yo. But you don't know that. Hey, the scripture speaks about race war coming to America. Right? So this is a part more from the speech. We stand for what is good and virtuous and what is noble, and for those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us. What do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness. You are jealousy. Right? Framing themselves as what? As the righteous one. Psalm 50 verse 16. But unto the wicked, right, Yahweh saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? What does that say? I've never read this in the NLT. But God says to the wicked, why bother reciting my decrees and pretend to obey my covenant? Because that's what they do. They say, oh, we're Christian. And they take up the Bible and they read it, but they're just pretending. For you refuse my discipline and treat my words like trash. Right? When you see thieves, you approve of them and you spend your time with adulterers. Look at the big support for the Israeli state. Right? And they're a bunch of murderers. Right? They're a bunch of murderers. Right throughout their ranks is a bunch of murderers and pedos, yo. Right? Your mouth is filled with wickedness and your tongue is full of lies. You sit around and slander your brother, your own mother's son. That's you, Jake. This is talking about the struggle between Esau and Jacob. Esau is the so-called white man. Esau is the one rearing his head right now, saying, that our ancestors built this and built that. Our roots go back to Athens and Greece and Retete and Rome. And, we built the cities. We built civilization. We are what is noble and good and just. Because that, when you look up the word white, that is what those are synonyms for the word white. Noble, righteous, good. And then when you look up the word black, synonyms for that is what? Wickedness, darkness, void of light, evil. That's why they label themselves as white and you as black. Right? So, Let's get another precept. This is Psalm chapter 10 and verse 1. Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in time of trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the vices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blessed the covetous whom the Lord abhorreth. Let's read some more of this speech. Right? It says, continue on. You are hatred, you are nothing, you can build nothing, you can produce nothing. Who is he talking about? He's talking about you, Jake. You useless eaters. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build, we are the ones who create, we are the ones who lift up humanity. That's what they believe. This is exactly the type of rhetoric that, what's his name again? Mustache guy. Hitler. Promoting the perfect Aryan race. You thought you killed Captain Kirk. You have made him immortal. You have immortalized him, and now millions carry on his legacy, and we will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes which he gave his last measure of devotion for. You cannot defeat us. You cannot slow us. You cannot stop us. You cannot deter us. Right? So he says, you have no idea how determined we are to save this civilization, to save the West, to save the Republic. Right? So, it says the continuation of Stephen Miller's speech contains several deeply concerning elements that align with both white nationalist and Christian nationalist rhetoric. Good versus evil framework. The stark division between we stand for good was virtuous noble versus you are wicked, hatred, you are nothing, creates a religious style moral hierarchy. Right? You are a heathen. I can come and kill you. Right? This type of language is central to Christian nationalist ideology, right? Which positions their movement as divinely righteous against supposedly evil something there. So there's one thing I wanted to ask. How does this tie to the eugenics movement and its use to justify the poor treatment of blacks and natives in America? Let's see what it says. Let's see what it says here. Bear with me. It says Miller's rhetoric has disturbing connections to the eugenics movement that historically justified horrific treatment of black Americans and Native Americans. Here are how they connect. The American eugenics movement focused on sterilizing the feeble-minded while also promoting racial ideology that white Anglo-Saxons were the superior race. This movement in the early 1900s promoted belief that some races, classes, and individuals were superior to others, using eugenics to justify their prejudices. Horrific implication against communities of color. The eugenics movement had devastating real-world consequences. Between Native Americans, between 1970 and 1976, an estimated 25 to 50% of Native Americans women were sterilized, often without their knowledge, during other medical procedures. These are the Christians, right? The federal law and policies of forced sterilization targeted Native American women along with other women of color, disabled, and poor women. African Americans. A large number of those who were targets of coerced sterilization in the later half of the century were African American, Hispanic, and Native American women. Right? Ideological parallels to Miller's speech. Miller's rhetoric echoes key eugenics themes. We are the builders versus you can create nothing. This mirrors eugenic claims about racial, cultural productivity hierarchies. The idea that certain groups are inherently creative and productive while others are not. Our lineage and ancestral superiority. Eugenics promoted that the notions that white Anglo-Saxon heritage represented superior genetic and cultural stock. Save this civilization / the West. This language parallels eugenic fears about racial degeneration and the need to protect superior bloodlines and culture. Moral supremacy claims. undesirable traits were concentrated in the poor, uneducated, and minority populations according to eugenesis, similar to Miller's framing of oppositions as morally deficient. Right? So this last part here, Miller's speech uses the same underlying logic, positioning one group as inherently superior, builders of civilization, while dehumanizing others as destructive and inferior. Right? Your enemy is rearing his head, yo. The enemy is back. He's showing his fangs. Right? Ecclesiasticus 12:10, never trust thine enemy. Right? For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself, go crouching. Right? Yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust has not been altogether wiped away. The hate is still there. Right? Psalm 58 and verse 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb, they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Right? Amos 1:11, thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. But I will send a fire upon Timan, right, we shall devour the palaces of Bozrah, and that's talking about America. America is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear fire, right? So let's wrap here. Job 20 and verse 4. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrites but for a moment? Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach to the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung, and they which have seen him shall say, where is he? He shall fly away as a dream, he shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. The eye which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. His children shall seek to please the poor, which are the who? The Israelites, you afflicted. And his hand shall restore their goods. His bones are full of the sin of his youth, and which shall lie down with him in the dust. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth, yet his meat in his bowels is turned, it is the gall of asps in him. He has swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. Yahweh shall cast them out of his belly. He shall suck the poison of asps, the viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of honey and butter. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein, because he has what? Oppressed and forsaken the poor, because he has violently taken away an house which he builded not. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly, he shall not save of that which he desired. There shall none of his meat be left. There shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency shall he be in straits. Every hand of the wicked, right, which is the laborers, right, which is you, Jake, shall be upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and a bow of steel shall strike him too. That's them ICBM missiles, yo. It is drawn, it cometh out of the body, thus the missile silos. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of the gall. Terrors are upon him. All darkness shall be hid in his hiding in secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him. Thermonuclear fire. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. The heaven shall reveal his iniquity. The earth shall rise up against him. And you're seeing it now, right? Nations upon nations are rising up, condemning them, right? Because they're do what? They're showing their horns. They're showing their true nature. It was bound to come out. The increase of his house shall depart, and his good shall flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion of the wicked man from Yahweh, and the heritage appointed unto him by the Most High. So hopefully this lesson was edifying. I know it was a bit long, a lot of reading. Hopefully you stuck with me. Shalom.